Hi everybody, very good morning. Uh, Yesterday I just realized that I've not touched the class and setters, get setters, because that is important before I touch the Angular. So because of that, we had some confusions on that as well. So let me just finish off that. Before I move on to that, I'll create a file project, which is I call it as class constructor class object dot js.
Excuse me,
So
sir. Your screen is not sharing.
yeah, I'll just share that screen as well. So let me just finish off the class where we use the get setters, etc. Once I complete that, I'll come back to Angular again, because Angular predominantly uses class concepts. So since it uses class concepts, you all need to understand what it means, because that is why yesterday that this dot operator, all that confusion started because of that. So this is also called prototype in the older JavaScript version before ES6. ES6 version only started with class operators. Before class operators, everything is a function in JavaScript, and it is getting translated. If you want to translate it as a class, you will use prototype dot object dot prototype. So that is how you set the properties or you get the properties. All that is done through that. So first is this operator. Understanding this operator is also very important. Okay, let me just, I shared my screen. I hope it is visible and voice is also audible. Please raise your hand if both are fine. Yeah, perfect. So let me just go back to the program. So what first is understanding the class. Class is nothing but you define it through the word class. So class is generally the name of the class is given as capital letters. All methods in JavaScript notation, all method names are given starting with camel case, starting with small letter. Every word change, you go with the capital letter. That is how the syntax is generally followed in Java, like file system object. F is small letter, S is capital, O is capital. Whereas whenever it comes to the class, we generally use capital letters, that is starting with capital letter. So let us take an example of, say, a person is a class. What does it mean? A person, what are all the person will have? A person will have weight, height, attribute, age, calculation. It's a calculated. First is I need to know the date of birth. If I know the date of birth, anytime I can take the uh, age, then first name, last name. So what is the advantage of class first? Why we need a class? First is class is a global definition. It is a global definition. Because it is a global definition, when I create multiple people, everybody will have the same syntax. So you want to create with first name, last name, and date of birth. Assume that these three are the columns that we want to use: name, first name, last name, date of birth. So I want the consistency when I want to create multiple people. I want the consistency. Everybody should have a first name, last name, and date of birth. So this class will help you in achieving that. So class definition, once you arrive at a class definition, then you can do validations. If anything wrong, you can do validation. Ensure that you get the right data into the system. So that is the advantage. Let me take class. Class always starts with a constructor. Without a constructor, there is no class. Constructor. This constructor takes the parameter. This parameter is nothing but an input parameter for the class. Assume that first name, last name, date of birth, DOB. This is my constructor. This is my. So the variable, this is the input. These three are input to you. This input, within this class, I need to declare a local variable. Within this class, local variable. That local variable is nothing but this. I can give any name. I just use fn equal to assigning that first name to that local variable. This local variable is available within this class anywhere. First name, this dot ln, last name, then this dot dob is a date of birth, dob, right? This is the constructor. First is without constructor, there is no class. So constructor is a mandatory candidate. Whether you can have an empty constructor, that means you just assign a class and you start using the class, right? So you can have a constructor, empty constructor is allowed. Otherwise, you can give parameter. I have given three parameters: first name, last name, and date of birth. So this constructor concept is very important. If you are defining a class has to be a constructor. Without a constructor, a class is not a class. It is only equivalent to a function. So class is always started with the constructor. So once constructor is defined, I can now create methods, multiple methods I can create. So if you want the syntax to be followed, it is like this: class, name of class name, right, followed by constructor. This is the syntax: constructor followed by methods. Any method you can write. This method with or without parameter you can give. Method 1, this is param 1, that is also possible. So all these are possible. So you can have any number of methods and constructor. Now in the version it is also supporting get and set operator. We'll come to that little later. Get and set operator. So what is the advantage also we'll come to know. When I created a class, I just wanted now get full name. This is my method. This is my method. This method, what it does, it returns this dot fn followed by space with this dot ln. Assume this way. I'm just returning a full name with fn plus last name. So anybody, once you created the class, once this object is ready, in that object, when you put object dot get full name, you get the full first name and last name. Then you have another thing, you call it as date of birth, right? Age, get age. Age is nothing but, how do you define a age? Return new of date minus new of, okay, I'll use age is because get full year minus new of date of dob, this dot dob. Because within this object, if I want this first name is not available below, the first name, last name, dob, the one that I given in the constructor, these three elements are not available within this function. It only whatever used it as this. That means this fn, ln, dob is available within this class everywhere. That is the local. It is local. It has become local. So this dot dob, I am subtracting. This is what I want to return. This is what I call it as 22 for whatever that age it comes. So now I define the class. Right? Now I define the class. I want to use the class. Initiate. I initiate an object with this class. I can initiate like this. Let p1 person1 equal to new of new. Please use the name new of person. Then only the class gets initiated. Person, new person, bracket. It asks for first name, last name, and date of birth. Oh, I'm sorry. PRSON. Why it is not personal? I'll use the word personal. Personal, the first name, last name, DOB. First name, I call it as say, what shall I call? Maybe Aravind. Last name, Aravind, say initial is K. Age, date of birth, I give it in this format, 2000, I call it as 2000 hyphen 10 hyphen 10. This is his date of birth. Now, this person, if I put a console log and P1, it will put the entire object output as an output. Run, start with Node.js. Now, this entire object is shown as first name is Fn, Aravind, Ln is K. You can see this first name, whatever you are given in the constructor is not available. Only this Fn, Ln, DOB is available, right? So if I want to now get the full name, P1 dot get full name, comma, P1 dot age, get age. That's it. Now, if I do this, the consistency you will get across the application. I can create multiple people. Let P2 equal to new of personal, right? Then instead of Aravind now, Jairam. Jairam, say N, date of birth, say 10, 2000, 1980 hyphen 10 hyphen 10. This is the date of birth. So again, then P2 dot get full name, P2 dot get DOB age. If I put this now, execute this, right? You will just see that Aravind, okay, something wrong. Get full year. This one is also supposed to be return dot get full year. I need to subtract from full year. New date of birth minus this one, run, execute. Now you can see Aravind K is 23 years, Jairam N is 43 years. So you can, this is the advantage of class and method. What is the disadvantage? Assume that if I am giving here 2025, which date of birth cannot be 2025, but still system accepts the data. Still system accepts the data and gives the minus value, -2. So Aravind age is -2, which is, we all know that it is not right. This is where the concept of get setters and set setters comes into picture. So the class supports that also, where I validate the input data so that I know I'm getting the right input. So is this clear as of now? Simple. I just classes constructor is class with class name. Constructor must be there. Constructor can be empty. Once you assign a value to the constructor, then it becomes a mandatory for personal. For example, if I try to create a let P3 equals new personal without attributes, if I try to create, let us see what happens. Right? It doesn't give an error, but you cannot get any value because it is all assigned with undefined, undefined, undefined. So console log P3. Console log P3, run without debugging, undefined, undefined, undefined. So the parameter values are undefined. But I want to control all this. I don't want this to be created because I don't want accidentally to be created with the empty data. This is where the set getters and setters will help. getters and setters. They use the word setters and getters. So constructor, empty, you can create an empty constructor. Method, multiple methods. In our case, get full name is one method, get age is one method. This uses the internal value parameter, this dot fn, this dot ln, this dot dob. He uses this values. Get dot full name uses fn and ln. Get age, subtracting from that, and then you are calculating the age and then passing on to the outside world. So it returns. So current year minus the date of birth that you give. What is the disadvantage in the current flow? Disadvantage is the data correctness. I can give an empty value, undefined value it is accepting. I want to control this. I don't want this to happen. How do I control this? This is what we call it as use with the help of getters and setters. Getters will work only if that is having a setters. There are certain properties, there are certain attributes can use setters. Certain properties need not use setters as well. It is up to system or the way the program decides or program need decides that, right? So I just leave this here. I create one more object. Create one more object. I rename it as class getter setters. This is the name generally people will give. Are you comfortable up to this? Please confirm before I proceed further. Are you comfortable up to this? Yes means raise your hand. If you have a question, please feel free to ask your question. Feel free to ask your question if you have any questions. Okay, perfect. So I have no questions, so I am proceeding further. Same thing, I'm just going to create class. A different name I'll give, but same concept. Person object, P capital, start with P, personal object. I'm just changing the name, personal object. It is always starts with the curly braces. Constructor is mandatory. Constructor, parameter, first name. Whatever you give here, this is the name that is available as part of help. Last name, first name, last name. Third one is say DOB, date of birth. I call it as date of birth. Right, constructor. Then whenever you are taking the input from the constructor, we are supposed to assign it to a internal variable. That internal variable is nothing but fn, first name, comma, this dot ln, last name, semicolon, end of the line, this dot dob equal to date of birth. This diagram. This there is no change up to this. Now I want this date of birth whenever they enter. I want to validate the date of birth, like it should not be a future date, and it should be a valid date of syntax, date syntax. I want to validate that. Then I can create a concept called get set. I'm setting the date of birth. So I treat this dob, this dot dob as a function now. Inside this dob, I pass the value, right? Inside the dob, I pass the value. Need not pass or pass. Let me check. This dot, you don't need. I'll just put date of birth. I'll just put date of birth. Right? I'm validating now this date of birth actually. I don't think I need this. Let me check. Let me check. So first is I need to validate this. So to validate this, first is I want to make sure date of birth is first is the valid date. It is a valid date. That means if I put, I'm just going back to my browser. I'm going to open an inspect window, console. I just put new of date of bracket valid date. So I'm just put 2022-01-01. If I put like this, I get the value. If I put a string here, hello, right, I get an invalid date. So I want to, if any invalid date is there, this function will return me invalid date. So I copy this invalid date because this is what I want to verify in my code. If date of birth, sorry, this dot dob new of date of this dot dob dot, since it is a string, I convert this to string because now invalid date is I'm comparing it like a string. If it is invalid date, I want to throw exception. I want to throw the exception. I don't want to accept the date. I don't want to accept the date. Must have the one parameter. I'll just put dob itself. Throw this dot dob, throw invalid date. Second, I want to now, so when I put the date set, I ensure that date is valid, otherwise I throw the exception, right? Then if everything is okay, then I need to set this value to another variable. That variable I can just, for understanding purpose, I make it as underscore dob equals new date of this dot dob. So this dot dob as assigning back under this dot dob this one. So what I'm doing, in case if there is a mistake, invalid date, I'm throwing exception. That means this will not get executed at all. It will throw as an exception. So in case if this is valid, it is not equal to invalid date. I'm assuming that then date is correct. Since date is correct, I'm assigning to the dob as my date field now. It is a date field. It is no longer a non-date field. It is a date field now. So now I want to get the age. That is called getter. Get, right? Get age is my property. What do you want to do with this? Return same command. This dot, sorry, new of date, get full year, minus this dot underscore dob now, because that is the date object, dot get full year, get UTC full year, get full year to return. So now you got a get operator and you have a set operator. Now get operator is act as a proper attribute, that is parameter. It is a property. It is not a function now. It is a property. It is not a method as we defined earlier. Even though the definition looks like a method, but it is a parameter. So you can return as get age dot age. That means object dot age. Object will automatically get set. Let us just see whether it works. Now let p1 equal to new of personal object bracket first name last name. So Aravind Aravind. Last name is say M. Date of birth, I give valid data first. 2000, I give a valid data. Now if I put P1 dot, right, you can see this age is available. So I can use now age, P1 dot age, console log P1 dot age. I have not called any other method. Constructor, I cannot call this function and all this I cannot call, right? So if I want to get this P1 dot age is the one. Let us execute this. Let us see what happens. And also I want to just put console log P1. Just see how that object looks like. Execute. Node. It has come up with an exception. I think that is because of that invalid date. Why invalid date? Date of birth. This dot dob. I'll just console log. That is the reason. Console log this dot dob is invalid because it is supposed to be date of birth. I'll just put this here. Let us just see that. There is some mistake I did, I know. Run. Here, get unset, but date of birth is not defined. So this date of birth is also not defined. Set DOF undefined. I'll give it here now. Let us see what happens. Run it. Undefined, but this has now come, but this is undefined. This dot dob is undefined. So I use the date of birth itself because that is the column, because he knows, because this input is supposed to go through the process of set. He knows that it is supposed to process of set, it has to go through. So this date of birth is valid. So I put it here, this date of birth. FS, run without. Now you can see here, this is the date, Aravind, M, DOB is the Indian standard, 23 is the age. So underscore DOB is my internal variable, that is I've set. So this, if I remove it, what will happen? I remove that line. Run without debugging. Now you can see, cannot set undefined, reading get full year. So this Aravind N has come, that means this line has got executed. So this command is successful, but p1.age is not valid, right? Because I need this also. This variable also I cannot ignore. So date of birth, new of date of birth, underscore DOB, and it is now execute, save it, execute. Now this is how a set and get properties will work. Here for full name, see here I am doing a validation here. Now if I give a wrong date, so 2025, it is a invalid date, right? So I put it like this. I'll put it like this, invalid date. Then if I try to execute, now it will say, sorry, personal object, it has taken as 1010, but it has got converted. Unfortunately, it has passed this value. I will give it as hello. Save, right? And date of birth to string, invalid date. Execute. Now you can see invalid date because you have passed an invalid date. Because it is invalid date, this set function has got executed. It has come to this execution, throw error, so invalid date it has thrown out. So you can validate the data. So you can do this. This is a very important aspect in any of the thing. That is why that ES6 becomes, after ES6 only, the whole thing becomes more or more comfortable. If I want to, I don't want first name and last name to be undefined, then I can again use set operator for first name and last name as well. So I can use a set name. I want you to do as a part of your exercise how to validate first name, how to remove a space, extra space, right? How to capitalize. How do I capitalize? Even if I give a small letter, I want to capitalize the first letter, right? For the first name and last name, this is the exercise you can do today. One is, even if you give a small letter, I want that to be capitalized. And there should not be any additional spaces, extra spaces. So how do you handle that? So expand this DOB object differently and then see how you can manage it. Okay. Another thing, I want to add future date. If new date of right is less than new date of birth, then I call this as throw. A date cannot be, DOB cannot be in future. I just want to pass this message. If I give a future date, new date, current date is less than date of birth. That means date of birth is greater than current date. I don't want to accept that. So when I do that, Aravind, instead of hello now 2025, valid date only 10/10. If I give this, now you just execute, you just understand now date of birth cannot be in future. DOB cannot be. Whatever the message you have, it is thrown as an exception. So it is calculated and it is thrown as an exception. If I put a try catch, try, execute, put this over here, right? Catch, E, catch E, curly braces, start and end, console log, E dot message. If I put this, if I fs execute, now you can see throw is E. So I thrown that E itself. So I'll put it as E itself. I put it as E itself. Run, because I returned a string. So DOB cannot be in future. I returned a string. Generally, what you can do is throw within curly braces. You can say message colon. This is the message you want to pass. This is the standard. If you do this, then it becomes a standard. So invalid date, I put it inside the, and the syntax is followed. That's all. Now E dot message will work. Control F, that becomes a standard. So date cannot be in future, right? So this is another advantage of managing this as well. So this is what a class getters and setters is all about. So any property within, when you are passing the value, then only this set and get has a meaning. If you are not passing a value, it doesn't have a meaning. For example, I just put, now I want full name. So get full name. I'll just full name, colon, function. It is a function. It is not a, so I'll use method. So get full name. It's a method. I return this dot fn plus space, or you can give it like this. Okay, let it be plus this dot ln, right? So if I just, then I can call this as a method. So I can call it over here P1 age, P1 dot get full name. This is a method, so I need to use the empty braces. I'm not passing a parameter. So I have a age. I can another thing, I can get a proper get height. I don't have an input now, so I can give a parameter height. Say I say 27 in centimeter, right? You give a height in centimeter. That's a parameter you are passing. I want to return it in inch. Inch is nothing but return in centimeter divided by 2.54 inches plus equals inch, right? I just want to give, but I want giving as a parameter, input parameter as a centimeter. Input parameter I give, it will convert me and then it will return me in centimeter to inch. So it will convert me and give. So if I give a wrong number, then it becomes a problem. Let us see here. So I give that. Now console log is there. I'll just add that my p1 dot get height. You can see that method is appearing. I call it as say 178 centimeter, right? 178. Let us see what happens. So this is independent of get and set in future. So I make it as 2005. Save it, execute, run without debugging. So it is 70.0787 inch. That is, so I want to round it off. I can round it off here itself. I don't have to go there. I can round it off here itself. Round, math dot round. Round will always take you to the full round. It will not, decimal will not be there in round. Round by default, it is a round. If it is less than, now it is 0.0, so you will return 70. If I give same value as 178, let us execute this. Run this. You can see now 70 inch. So the round will always nearest. If I want decimal, add decimal, etc., you need to make sure divide into 100 divided by 100. So into 100. After round, you need to do before round. Before round, you do into 100. So that round happens with decimal. After round, you put 100. That means 2 decimal point. After round, I'm converting back. That's how it will work. 70.08 inch. So you round, you are making it into 100 so that it goes into 4 digits. Then you are dividing back by 100. Out after rounding up, you are dividing back by 100. So you get a 2 decimal point. So that is how math function will work. Round, you don't have a round comma decimal point. You don't have that option. It always nearest to the number, it will round. Okay. All this concept is what we are going to use it in Angular. I thought this I was missing yesterday. So without this, I was started Angular. So I thought I'll ensure this is covered. Then we'll get into the Angular. So now you understood why try catch is used. You get the proper message without going through blah, 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 etc. You get a proper message. If I make a mistake here, get hello. I give a hello as a string because I'm not validating the data. Since I don't validate the data, it can accept anything, but it might throw an exception now. So not a number. Not a number is what I have got. Because this hello, when I try to divide it here, so up to this not an issue, but when I divide it, it says it's not a number. Because it is not a number, it is not accepting the value. So it says not a number. Okay, so you can validate that also. So that, how do you validate? If number of in cm in centimeter dot to string is equal to n small a n, then you can throw exception, not a height value must be in integer. I can throw this and then I can execute now, same thing. Now since we have a try catch, that is already handled now, but unfortunately this will give a problem, so I'll put it in the message colon syntax, making sure that syntax is taken care of. Control Fs, run debug. Now height value must be in integer. So you've thrown the exception that is cached by this catch exception e console that is captured. So this is how you can use this set and getter. How to use the try catch also we have seen in reality. How the catch is getting thrown, how it is catched by your try catch. That's also we have seen. So today in this aspect, try to do it for a car, color of a car, right? Random color of a car, get some color of a car randomly, right? Same thing. Anywhere, any object where you can assign an attributes. So set is nothing but assigning a property, and get is nothing but getting the property. Set the property or validate the property using set object. Get object will return the property. Additional methods you can do for your calculation and other steps, you can do additional methods as well. Everything, if you are validating, it should follow with the throw option so that you catch the exception when it is failing. So class definition, that is how you defined your classes. So the same way you expand this for first name, last name, validate, create a setter so that first name should be always capital letter. It should return capital letter. Even if you give a small letter, it should return a capital letter. Maximum first name character should not exceed say 50 characters. Last name also should not exceed 50 characters. All these validations you include when you are setting the value. Try to do that. So this is how a class is used. A class is nothing but an object. In that object, you are trying to manage the entire properties and methods. Any object, there is an action. Method is nothing but an action. Every object has an attributes. Attributes are nothing but a properties. So how to set a property, how to get the, how to action, how do you perform an action? So it can, method can take an outside parameter directly as well. It doesn't matter. So this is how, this is the concept followed in Angular material. Any component you create, he creates a default class. So he creates a default class, and that class is generally, you can, we generally use the empty constructor in that place. We use an empty constructor. So I hope today is this clear. Tomorrow we'll continue with Angular material. So any questions as of now, please let me know. So this concept is very, very important. See, when we are dealing with packages, etc., there are packages which expects funding, all that will be there, but you don't get into that. As far as possible, deal with the one that is standard and which is you want to use it, and market acceptance is also there. I'll give the code paste here, cut and paste of the code. Yes, I'll give that. Control C, Control V. I have done now for the first thing, class. Second thing, don't put both in the same place. You may have the variable conflict. I put it in the two different. Okay. So make sure that you have that. This is very, very important to understand the class. There are a lot of case studies you can do with the class. Some complex case study, uh, all this it can be done. This class definition or class settings is very, very crucial when you are dealing with some objects, third party objects, etc. You can use this effectively to your effectivity, because you are defining, you people cannot change it. For example, age calculation, there cannot be mistake now on the age calculation. Once the class is set and functionality is tested, you will not have a anybody want to get the age, date dot object dot age will give you the correct age only, because that class is set. Nobody can edit that class. So all classes can be part of a global object, so that it is non-editable, it is outside this, and you can refer it inside. All that is all part. The packages, all the packages that we are installing are defined through this model only. Everywhere this class concept is what used, right? When you are exporting, it is available to the outside world. If you are not exporting, it is available only internally. That's it. That's a difference. Okay. Generally we use queue because there is a queue concept in all your Java. Everywhere you have a direct queue object, whereas in JavaScript you don't have a queue object. When you are interacting with two systems and you want to make the system independent, we need to use an interface that we call it as queue. That means the incoming object, as soon as the object comes in, that is a assume that I have a two place. That is, if I put it here, I have a incoming, this is process, then out outgoing, or I call it as another get from third party, right? Get from third party, it is taking from this process. Usually incoming comes, process it, and the get third party will take that incoming. I cannot make it independent. If I want to make incoming independent, third party is independent, he can put any time. I will process it and keep it ready. He can take any time. So I don't want this to be dependent. This kind of a concept, intermediary concept, you can use the queue system. That's very effective. Queue systems or repositories or something like that. So these are all the available things. So I stop at this point. Tomorrow we'll continue on this. Thank you. Anything else, please let me know. If nothing is there, I'll stop today's session here. Thanks a lot. Bye. Have a nice day.